Welcome to WRM, Work Relationships Matter. I am your host, the Edward Jones, a certified life coach and host of this podcast. My guest today is Derrell Roberts, the CEO of the Roberts Family Development Center. Welcome, Derrell.
Thank you for letting me join you, Dr. Jones.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you're able to make time for me because you are one busy man. And you've done so many wonderful things in this community, very successful, a very respected name. But before we get into what you do, I want to learn more about who you are, how you were brought up, your family, and the things that have influenced your life. So go ahead and let us know a little bit about your background.
Dr. Jones, I am Derrell Roberts, son of Elizabeth and Herman Roberts Jr. Grew up in New Orleans, grandson of Edmund St. Cyr and his wife Elizabeth. Lived in New Orleans the formative years of my life, first 17 years. Moved to Los Angeles for high school, junior, senior year of high school, where I lived with Edmund and Elizabeth St. Cyr, my grandparents. Went to Chapman College as an undergraduate, USC as a graduate student, and moved to Sacramento, part of my graduate program, in 1982. So I've been in Sacramento a while now. Some people used to think me as a youngster, not anymore.
Right. That's always interesting. When I've known you when I was at Sac State, you were on my Multicultural Center board. So that's over 15 years, perhaps.
15 years ago, sure.
Right. I appreciated that. And the thing and I've seen your different things. I did not know you're from New Orleans, the migration. Everybody's had a migration that they've gone through. So, and I've been reading a lot of African-American history books and about people migrating from the South to different parts of the country.
Right.
So what was the catalyst for getting to move from New Orleans, from that LA to the other LA?
So honestly, Louisiana was a place where a lot of foundation for me occurred. Being originally from a two-family household, but in my early years, my dad really wasn't a very good dad or a very good husband, to be quite honest with you. Later on, as he grew and matured, it's kind of interesting. I always tell people my dad, when I was growing up, wasn't the same dad I have today, because he truly did grow into a very strong man, a very religious man, father of his church at Greater St. Stephen's Baptist Church in New Orleans. The other thing, Dr. Jones, I'll tell you, I can tell you didn't really talk to me much about where I was from, because you said New Orleans, and I correct anybody very quick. No, it's New Orleans, bro, not New Orleans. But it's all right. And you would have picked up that and said, "Oh no, he's from New Orleans." And I really did have the benefits of the South in a lot of ways. I think my ethics, my work ethics was, although my dad wasn't the best of fathers, he was always an example of a man that worked. So my work ethic comes honestly between him and my grandfather. And my grandmother and mother is very gracious and very kind people. So when people talk to me about being a kind or a generous person, I get that honestly from my mother and my grandmother. And I get the work ethic from my grandfather and my dad. So in many ways, I'm the product of the environment where I grew up in. And very supportive environment, both in New Orleans, that later transferred as the family moved in the early 60s to California. I moved to the California in the mid 70s to finish schooling, which is the reason I moved. I wanted to go to college in California. And at that moment, I thought I wanted to go as an undergraduate to USC. So being a resident of California was an advantage. And, growing up in the South, you always talk about the advantages to moving places. So that was an advantage. Ended up going to Chapman, at that time, Chapman College, but later on Chapman University as an undergraduate, but ended up going to USC as a graduate student. So it really was about education. When I moved from New Orleans to California, I saw the opportunities even at an early age. And it made sense to me. And I like the weather. Heck, who didn't like the sunshine of Southern California? or although I probably would have moved to San Diego had I realized that's the optimum weather.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
moving to Northern California was a change in a lot of ways, but I've been it's been a beneficial move for me. And for
Great.
literally the last nearly 40 years, I've been here in Sacramento.
Okay. Well, excellent. Now, that I think about the Roberts Family Development Center,
Mhm.
and that is your career. And the thing that I ask people is, did you choose your career or did it choose you?
Um, I, I think it's a combination of both. In a way, I always wanted to be about being. I took Dr. King's terminology of being a change agent. Being a
Hmm.
change agent meant something to me. So being about change was always what I wanted to do. Even in college, I got involved in student government, and I was
Hmm.
about change. Came to
Right.
Sacramento and worked at the Capitol initially, and really planned on being in the legislature. And there was just some
Okay.
aspects of the legislature I really didn't particularly like, and I kind of gravitated to the community. And the first community I gravitated to was Oak Park. And back in those days, I became economic development consultant, which was part of the economic development was part of my background, governmental affairs and education at SC. So I had this training that I learned at State Capitol, and I learned how to do economic development reports. And that's what I came to Oak Park doing. I was hired by a group out of Oak Park called Superior Valley. They had a
Mhm.
contract to do economic development projects in Oak Park. I was their lead guy. And I ended up working there. And one day I started doing things outside of my job as an economic development person. And that ended up being spent off to running a basketball program, spent off to helping the Urban League do a speakers bureau. And things like that started happening. And then in a way, a combination of me gravitating to it and maybe the pull of doing community work was prepared me for what I'm doing today. And, I spent almost 15 years prior to coming to Roberts Family Development Center preparing to run Roberts Family Development Center. And we've been
Mhm.
at it 20 years now in North Sac, El Paso Heights, where we started. And we have a center here, 4 buildings that we presently do our work. But we have contracts with 3 school districts where we do work on maybe 4 or 5 school campuses,
Mhm.
working with families. And that's the work of Roberts Family Development Center. It's really family oriented.
Mhm.
And interestingly enough, the name Roberts Family Development Center really wasn't our original name of the center. My wife's name is Tina Roberts. She's our COO at Roberts Family Development Center. But we also had made a decision that we were going to name the center after my grandfather, Edmund St. Cyr, and her
Mhm.
grandmother, Roni Howard. So the center
Mhm.
was first called the Edmund St. Cyr Roni Howard Family Development Center. And that's what I took down to the Secretary of State's office when I filed papers to start this corporation. And the lady at the counter said, "Baby, what's the name? Edmund St. Cyr Roni Howard Family Development Center." Ooh, that's kind of long. And she looked at me and she said, "Let's call this something else." So I said, "Well, how about ESRH, the initials, Family Development Center?" Baby, that's still kind of long. And she was a lady who was able to call me baby. She was an old African
Yeah.
American lady. And she
Mhm.
said, "Well, what's your name?" I said, "Derrell Roberts." She said, "Well, let's call it the Roberts Family Development Center." And I said, "Ma'am,
Mhm.
I don't think that's what I should do because people are going to think it's an ego trip." She said, "Baby,
Mhm.
people are going to think it's an ego trip whether you put that on the building or not. So don't worry about people and do what you need to do." And therein came the name Roberts Family Development Center. And we have been Roberts Family Development Center for now 21 years here
Mhm.
in North Sac, and have served a little bit throughout the city of Sacramento under that title, which has been part of our legacy.
Right. Now, one of the things you said is you were about change.
Yes, sir.
So when I think about developing the Roberts Development Center,
Uh-huh.
what were you looking to change when you developed that organization?
So I was, again, having grown up professionally in Oak Park. I did youth development programs at the Urban League. I ran the Oak Park Summer Basketball League that expanded to the Salvation Army, and we ran one of the largest basketball programs in the region. I was also the first executive director of St. Hope Academy, Kevin Johnson's baby, out of Oak Park. And with those things, as well as my community work, I really recognized the value of families being put in a positive environment. Every place I went, that was kind of the draw. So at the Salvation Army, we did basketball, but really, I was trying to get the parents to see the beauty of having their kids in a positive environment. St. Hope Academy was just that, helping our people excel. That was Kevin's St. Hope motto. And for me at the Urban League gave me a chance to develop programs that brought professionals into the lives of our children and families. So with those three organizations background, and then I had the background of the Oak Park Summer League, which is a basketball program that I really recognize. Parents really get off on seeing their kids and doing positive things. Right. But as long as you remind them that that's what the environment was for, you had a ball. And we always had a ball at the Salvation Army. We always ran what people called a different type of program. And for me, that's what the center is, a different type of center that provides a service to families, that gives them a positive environment for their children to grow up in, to move in, to develop in, and for a place that would support their values as a family. And in some cases, it may sound kind of different, but we also recognize in some cases we had to establish what those values had to be community-wise in the center itself. And that's how we rolled and dealt with how we did things. So you might hear people say that they're a little different. Kids that go to the Roberts Family Development Center, they do cuss, but they don't cuss at the center. They may fight, but they don't fight at the center. And that's just because those are just basic rules that we think you could be better than that. You can do better than that. And that's that expectation that we had growing up in the South, that I had growing up in a St. Cyr family household, that I know my wife had growing up in the Baldwin Howard family in Georgia. And, that's what we wanted. So for 21 years at our center, our main center on the arena, that's what we've created. And whenever we go on a school campus, we try to create a family environment. To the point, I'm often called upon now by school district to assist them in parent engagement activities and doing parent engagement work. So that's kind of become our little shtick or our bailiwick. Family development specifically, but children and family development has been the way we have done our work. And it also has allowed me to hire younger professionals who might want to have an impact on the lives of children and families. And we hired them, and we put 50 to 60 a year in front of young people, so that we recognize that young people learn best from young people. The role models they pay attention to first are parents, but the ones that they see on a consistent basis, teachers, servant leader interns, what we call team leaders, those are the folks that they come in contact with. And those are the folks we hire to give them a positive look in life and a positive outlook on life.
Well, that's great. Now, it's really interesting when you first started talking about the center, you talked about the ego trip with having the name on. And let me say that you are one of the most humble people that I know to be as recognized as you are. When I think about you, I think about a line from the poem If, to walk with kings but not lose common touch.
Yes, sir.
Because you're able to run with the big dogs, but you get down eye to eye with the young people. So I definitely see that. So folks, I just want you to know this is a humble leader, a servant leader. So just to make that abundantly clear. The one thing that I want to follow up on, and that is values with families, because I work with a youth program too, and a lot of times the kids come and you wonder what's going on at home because of the way that they behave. So when you talk about creating values, if they don't already have them, what are maybe 2 or 3 values that you want to instill in the people who come to your program?
Well, honestly, I think the biggest piece is just being consistent with folks.
Okay.
And for us, as it pertains to kids, young people will do anything you ask them to do if you're consistent about it. See, the deal for a lot of people, inconsistency is what throws off young people, as it throws off all of us. But that's the part we don't realize. Young people pay attention to and listen to you. And if you do a certain thing, and that's what they become accustomed to, they will follow you to the end of the earth. Give you a real example. Get a kid, young white kid, who grew up in the center. Probably when he started with the center, he was probably about 8 or 9 years old. And somehow or another, I got into the habit of messing with his hair. I don't know what it was about him. I just messed it with his hair. He was a young white kid, so it didn't cause his hair to get too messed up, right? I would mess with his hair, and I probably did that maybe a year or two, no joke. As he's getting a little older, starting to be about a preteen. And, you know, as boys get to be preteens, you kind of, if you don't recognize it, but boys start changing a little bit, just like girls, but boys start changing because they're paying attention to what other people are paying attention to them as. So, you know, I started thinking that maybe he didn't like that. So one day, literally, he came through and I didn't do that. And I remember literally 10 minutes after he left, his mom called me and said, in this day, they used to call me Derrell. So, Derrell, was there a problem? I said, what's wrong? Well, Dylan, which was his name, Dylan thought you were upset with him. I said, why you thought I was upset with him? You didn't mess up his hair today. I said, oh. And what I didn't realize is that Dylan saw that as a way I connected to him. And I think we don't realize how subtle that connection is for young people. Sometimes the mere fact that you see a kid on a regular basis, you tap. I don't know if you ever seen the commercials or the pieces where somebody does the hand clap and the teacher does that, or the police officer. That's the connection between them and the child. And we don't realize that kids thrive on that. They want that. They want the connection with adults who seem to care about them. And especially if they accidentally mess up and do like, you know, we do to respect each other. You know, I respect you as much as you respect me. So I appreciate you saying I'm modest, but I see you as one of those people that I have no right to be anything less than modest around you because of who you are in my world academically. But that's what it's about for me. So my consistency with people and trying to be a humble person is because I know that being consistent is very important. So I try my best to do that. And I learned from Dylan that was important to children. And that point, I started talking to others about, don't be afraid to connect with kids. Don't be scared to say that you care about them or you're looking out for them or you have expectations of them. That's okay. They love that connection. And that to me is the difference between Roberts. We don't have a problem connecting in that way. And I know some people, everybody does that. Okay, well, if everybody does it, let's get better at it. You know, for us, that's it. I don't want you yelling at a kid. I want you to high five a kid and I want you to look at them or get close enough to them. If there's something you got to talk about that's a disagreement, you give them a chance to hear you. You know, because I'm so tall and I'm not a little man, it means that I have to make sure that I don't come in banging yelling or anything because it'll scare kids. But I will tell you sometime, Doc, back in the day as well as today, if it's necessary, I will get your attention. Because for me, there has to be order. I was, I'm brought up in the church. And here in Sacramento, you know, Pastor Ephraim William at St. Paul talks about decent and order. And in my opinion, that's part of making sure that an environment is controlled chaos. Not without chaos, but it has to be controlled and is understood. That the noise you hear is designed because the kids are having fun. If you're at a park and you don't hear no noise, kids ain't having fun. You know, if you're in a classroom and there's not a buzz there's not a buzz to it, there's no learning really going on. When there's real learning going on, there's a buzz. Unless there's a reason for everybody to be quiet, the whole concept of our center is to provide a space. No longer just a building, although we have this building that we're renovating. It'll be reopened in July, August. But the grounds now are going to be the space for our kids. We're going to have the Wi-Fi system through Comcast that will allow us to sit at the various benches on our little properties. And we're doing that on purpose because we want our kids to have a space in their neighborhood that is theirs. That's designed for them to have a ball, a great time, and for their families to feel comfortable and to be a part of it. Because I do anticipate and expect parents to play a role in their child's life. If you want me to play a role, I think you have to play that role as well.
Now, does your program, is it after school or is it during school? How does it complement with the school system?
During the school year, after school is our primary. During the pandemic, man, we were everything. We did in school, we did after school, we had night parent meetings, we had weekend activities. We're about to do full on Freedom School. Have 500 kids that'll be on 3-4 different campuses. We'll spread out, and these at the Florida Elementary School, and Sac City will be at Martin Luther King and Twin Bridge Unified School District, and at Glenwood Elementary School and Taylor Street and Robles School District. 500 kids spread along this part of the city. For the purpose of being a part of Freedom School, which is the Children Defense Fund's literacy-based summer program. That's an all-day piece. But typically we do our work in the after-school environment. And in the after-school environment, along with parent participation, that's what we do, and that's who we are. So that, and for, we kind of spent off to do a couple other things right now in partnership with Dr. Andrea Moore from Sac State and Sonia Lewis, Scribe Education Services. The three of us have been working with Robles Unified School District around Robles Elementary School District around anti-racism work, really to address the realities that when our kids are in environments where people don't really appreciate the differences they bring to the table, our kids are not doing well. And they're not doing well academically, socially, or emotionally. And it's important for us at this point in life for us to address those things and to require others, especially educators who are in front of our kids, to understand our kids are different. No, they can't be colorblind when it comes down to our children. We want you to see the flavor they bring to the room. We want you to feel and respect the flavor they bring to the room, but we also want them to respect the educational environment and the environment wherever they are, so that they understand that, there's a time and place for everything. In education, there's a time and place for studying, but there's also a time and place to have fun in educational environments too. And we want to make sure that people remember, we have kids. We don't have robots. We don't send robots to schools. We send our children to schools. And it's important that the educational environment understands that. So I've been doing a little bit of that, working with districts, Twin Rivers. I'm working with them with connecting with their African-American parent base, meeting with them on a monthly basis, really to make them more and more aware of the need for them to be visible in their child's school. Because that's the beauty of my life. My mom was visible at Nelson Elementary School in New Orleans, Louisiana. She was, my elementary school had Elizabeth Roberts at every grade. She had kids in every grade. So she was a volunteer in nearly every classroom doing something on campus during the school year. That was her. In some ways, that was her job until my dad and her split up, because that's what she did best. But her presence mattered. And for us, that's why education was so important, because my mom was in the environment.
And that's because other parents, that would encourage parents to just get more involved with they should be.
That's what we need to do. Parents have to remember that educators are a part of their child's educational life, educational experience. Parents are part of the educational experience. The church is a part of the community is part of the educational experience. Field trips, local field trips. And again, it don't have to be going to Yosemite. Go to the park. Go to McKinley Park. Go to Miller's Park. Go to places that you have not been to with your child. Take light rail. Take a public bus. Get off the bus and enjoy life. Enjoy the city where you're at. We have too many kids who don't know anything about downtown and live in Sacramento. And that's the thing that parents can do. You don't have to spend a lot. You just have to invest a lot of time. And a lot of time is what our kids have earned, because you had them. And as I always tell people, you had all that fun they had in children, then you should help everybody who is working with them now to appreciate them as a child, as they develop and grow. I had that joke with many parents when we had a parent meeting. I always tell them, I'm here as your partner. Remember, you had all that the fun they had that child. I had none of that fun. Until one day a grandmother said to me, Mr. Roberts, you and me are tight though. I said, yeah, Grandma, we're not going to tell everybody our business. Because, but that was her joke. And for me, and I'm glad you laughed, because they're like, did I not
Right.
But it's, the funny thing about all of this for me is
Hmm.
I don't think people realize I enjoy this. I have
Right.
fun at it. Maybe when people see me, that's the part that they recognize. I'm enjoying this. I don't get caught up in, trying to be important, because I'm too busy enjoying the moments that are occurring. Like when a kid who you didn't think was going to go finish high school becomes a valedictorian and the class speaker, as I did 2 weeks ago when Jeremiah Gage graduated from high school. Because not every kid you meet you think gonna make it. Because some at that moment when you're working with them, it's like, man, you're not listening. You're making this hard. You're making your grandmother's life hard. You're making mom life hard. You got dad getting great. And at some point, if we stay with our kids, it clicks. And that's the hope. Just like for all of us. I don't know when it clicked for you, but I know for me in about the 7th, 8th grade, it made sense. That college made sense. It might have been the fact that, the alphas from Dillard took me over to the dorm area, and I noticed the girls' dorm was right next to the boys' dorm.
Right.
I'm going to college. I'm going to college.
Let me shift gears on you just for a minute here, because this is what I ask all my guests, and I want our listeners to hear. What is the toughest situation you faced, and how did you handle it?
Oh, Lord. Damn, Doc. My toughest situation was to be exposed for not being perfect. About 2 years ago, our fiscal part of the center was being challenged and questioned by the general public, and it was in a political climate, but it was still being happening. And the reality was that we were guilty of not being ready for the growth that occurred. We grew too fast as an organization, and our foundation wasn't strong enough. And fiscally, as a nonprofit, you got to have a strong financial base to grow. Because you may get 2 or 3 contracts before you know it. You're bringing in $1 million and employing 20 people and doing all those things that you need to do. But if you're not crossing the T's and dotting the I's, taking care of the paperwork that's needed, you run afoul of the rules and regulations. And we did.
Right.
It took a minute. It kind of hurt because, I had a couple people who in their own infinite wisdom decided to question me publicly. And I couldn't really respond at that point. Later on, I realized, well, in some cases that was because of politics. The other cases was that you get haters. And not everybody's happy that you're doing well. And I just had to accept that, because I'm just, I'm different, man. I'm cheering you on for everything that you do, sir. Every accolade you get, I'm saying, good job, that's the way I was taught. And that's how I am with nearly everybody. There are a couple people that made me question, do I need to cheer you on? And maybe I don't boo you. But that's the difference for me. And I think that I'm accustomed to that, and I expect people to do that. So when that occurred, that was a little hard,
So the take-home message that it sounds like is you grew too fast, but you learned overcome it by adjusting to those new things. So that's how you overcame it. That's what I want our listeners to know, that they may run into something like this.
Yeah.
And so you can help them foresee that possibility and how to address it, which I think is that area of redemption is just so important.
I am a phone call away for anybody who is thinking about doing nonprofit work. Happy to talk with them about it, talk to them about growth, talk to them about taking care of accounting, making sure that they know all the reports that are needed to be done for them, and also where to go to make sure that they get the factual information you need. Growing up in New Orleans and being a Black male, you play dominoes, and that dude that throws down all money ain't good money. And he said, no, I'm not. And that's what it is. It's just recognizing as you grow that every opportunity isn't the right opportunity for you at that time. It may not be unless you're prepared. And in dominoes,
One thing I have to say is our 30 minutes is almost up.
Oh, man.
Yeah, like I say, it goes fast.
I've enjoyed it.
What I want you to do is, if people want to follow up, get to know more about you or more about your organization, where should they call? What is your website? How do people get a hold of you?
A few quick ones. They can always call our office, 916-646-6631. That's 916-646-6631. The organization is Roberts Family Development Center, not Robert's son, because I have a daughter, not a son, Roberts Family Development Center. RobertsFDC.org is our website. RobertsFDC.org is our website. And before I go, I need to say hi to my daughter, 2 granddaughters, and son-in-law, because that's part of my world as well. I'm very fortunate to be a big papa. And I heard you say a little earlier that your grandkids were visiting you, so I know how that makes you feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Well, Derrell, thank you so much for being my guest. The time just went by just too fast.
Enjoyed it,
so we'll have you back one more time just to do a part 2.
Anytime you'd like to, I'd come back to you.
Well, thank you so much. And folks, this is WRM Work Relationships Matters. I'm your host, The Edward Jones, a certified life coach and host of this podcast. My motto is work relationships work for those who work on them. If you want to learn more about my coaching business, go to www.prodestinycoaching.com. That's www.prodestinycoaching.com to learn more about my coaching practice, because that's my website. I have blogs on there, and I also have a survey about work situations. So look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day. Okay, we're technically out, but the tape is still rolling. But I want to do the debrief. Is there anything? Well, first of all, let me let you know that this will be on Apple Podcast, on Spotify. Okay. And after I get a certain number, they can be on iHeartRadio. So I will give you more information about that, about when things drop, as they say in the business.
And when you do that, I'll also put it on my Facebook page, and I'll push it out as well. You know, I have a little bit of following out there.
I know that. So yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
So that's good. But any questions, anything that you wanted to share?
I enjoyed it. Thank you. I really did. I enjoyed talking to you. Your questions were interesting. Hope that I covered what you needed to get covered.
No, it was great. I think, and I do believe that other people who hear this, anything that helps to develop the family, I think is important. And the one thing that you alluded to is that the center is diverse. Your population is diverse, which I think is very important as you talk about how to deal with the current climate.
Yeah. Well, let me be honest with you. I'm probably much less diverse than I talk about, because honestly, I'm probably about 80% Black.
Okay.
Include probably about 75% of the kids that I serve are Black. 80% of the folks that I employ are Black. And that's fairly intentional. And that's because of the days I would come on campus, and no matter what happened, I always seem to be attractive to Black students. And anytime I came in, and maybe it's because you provided, Dr. Green, Dr. Moore later on.
Right.
I'm sorry. Gave me those spaces where I could, speak or talk to classes. And, Al Brown back in the day. I mean, Dr. Turner, you name it. I mean, Otis Scott just gave me a chance to just stop in. And for a lot of folks, I was a young cat doing work, and they were just allowed to come in and talk about what I was doing. So I had a pretty easy path to connecting with, especially Sac State and Sac City students, So when I began doing this work, I had, a ready set of African-American students who wanted to work with us. And it's pretty much stayed that way. Cooper Woodson School, on campus. The Emoji Project through Jerry Marshall at ARC and CRC. Those have been, Sac City, the Emoji Project. It's just been that way for me. I have to intentionally, as I did this summer, intentionally go out of my way to connect with Latino students specifically. And I always grab a white kid or two to put them in our world because of diversity. But I recognize, quite honestly, I am truly the beneficiary of being a tall, good-looking Black man, just like you.
Right, well, that's good.
Yeah.
You got to use everything you got, man.
You got it, bro. Well, you know, I mean, what I mean by that is being somebody who people see somewhat visible in Sacramento, so they